Okay.
Recording is on.
There we go. Recording is on. Recording our meetings for all of our members that unfortunately are not able to make it. But welcome everybody. Yay! It's middle of November, and we're 5 weeks out from Christmas, 6 weeks to the end of the year. I'm sure a lot of us are just dying to get out of 2020 and into the fun new 2021. But everybody, welcome to our November ISC Squared Central Florida chapter meeting after the first day of ISC Squared Congress. Hopefully a lot of you have had a chance to see some of the sessions today. I know I watched the first one this morning with Claire, and that was interesting. Considering that's the first time I've seen her or heard from her, the new CEO for ISC Squared. But it was good just to kind of, be in the spirit of ISC Squared. But I'm sure, like the rest of you, it's kind of a bummer that we're not there in real life, in person with everybody. But hopefully we'll get that back next year. So, all right, let's kick this off. So I'm going to run through some announcements, and then I'm very, very, very excited for the two speakers that we have here tonight, Alethe, Denis, and Kaitlyn, Ilkani. I've had the pleasure of meeting both of them over the last year. Actually, I think I met Alethe at DEF CON 27, so a year last August. But Kaitlyn, I know I met at RSA this year. And just first of all, two fantastic speakers. Second, their topics that they're going to share with us tonight, I think will be extremely worthwhile to everybody. No pressure to Alethe or Kaitlyn whatsoever. And then we'll wrap this all up and get you guys back on your couches or back in front of your work computers for 8:30. First of all, got to hand out special thanks to Andy Jalbert from 8x8, who provides us the platform that we're all using here tonight, and really appreciative of his support. Andy, go ahead and give us a shout. Tell us what 8x8 is besides.
Hey guys, good evening. Happy November. 8x8 is a global, publicly traded, unified communications and contact center solution. So that's your phone, your video, and your chat application. We take security very seriously. We provide end-to-end encryption for our video meetings platform, and we are certified by the Federal Information Security Modernization Act, which allows us to sell into government entities. So with that, I appreciate you attending today and appreciate your support.
Thanks, Andy. Really appreciate it, and glad to have you with us here again. So, like 8x8, our chapter is extremely supportive by a lot of other organizations. Some of them local, like ISG with Bob Thompson, Gold Sky, Ron Frechette, and then of course ECPI, Valencia College, and Full Sail. I know they're all still kind of hurting not having students in their buildings, and we're kind of hurting not being able to be there as well. But real glad that we've got the support from the industry here in town as well as globally. All right, so if you've never been to one of the ISC Squared Central Florida meetings, I think a lot of you have already. I recognized a lot of the names as I was scrolling through, but if you haven't, this is your first time, because I do know we have some new folks. Pretty well everything that we do with this chapter is based off the foundation that we get from ISC Squared regarding inspiring, educating, connecting people, and helping them gain the knowledge for securing their home, their work environment, spreading the word out to the community, and so forth. Here we are trying to connect through the 8x8 and through these meetings, provide you some great education, hopefully inspire you, and again, look to secure. So if you've never met me, I'm James McQuiggan. I'm the chapter president, and on the meeting tonight, I know we got Christopher Hickernell, who does membership, Paul O'Connor, who handles our treasury, Amy Rooks, who handles sponsorship, Tom Plummer, who's our education and outreach guy. We have Debbie Carr, who's our chapter secretary, and then Walter Spielman, who is our vice president. I know recently we've been getting a few emails from certain folks concerned about CPEs, making sure we've been getting them in. As I mentioned Christopher's name, it kind of struck that chord to mention that, let everybody know that once we have our meetings, Christopher goes through and collates or goes through, looks at everybody who's been in attendance. He's checking the roster as we go through with those that have registered. And then he pulls the CPEs and then submits those. He usually does that within the first week after our meeting. While it does take ISC Squared a few weeks, more so right now, unfortunately, because of ISC Squared Security Congress virtually that's been going on. But rest assured, we get yours out within about a week after the actual event. So if it doesn't show up, it's fine to just drop us a note, but rest assured we are submitting them. Christopher has been fantastic and continues to be fantastic with regards to getting those in as soon as he can. Like I said, usually within about a week after the event. And I know we're coming to the end of the year, so if there are some folks that are really concerned, you've got to get some more CPEs, let us know, because we've got some great ways that you can get other CPEs as well as with this chapter as well. Okay, so upcoming events. What else is going on in the world? Hey, there's a holiday party. I got an email from the SIM folks and the Society of Information Managers. These are the folks that have put on the big holiday party for the last couple of years. They had told me they were just doing it for their folks, but I got an email from them last week saying that, hey, if there's any of your members that want to attend, they're welcome to. You just need to bring either an unwrapped toy for a child that's going to be given out, or you can make a $25 donation to the Sim Florida Foundation. But it's going to be at Top Golf, and I think it's the one at down on I Drive. But when you visit the website, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw somebody made a comment. They couldn't hear me. So with Top Golf, yeah, it's going to be social distancing, masks. I'm not sure how they're going to set up the teams, but it's entirely up to you all if you want to attend. Just want to make sure you are aware of it. I told them I would let everybody know. Then December 14th, a month from now, just under a month from now, we'll do our next virtual event, Close Out 2020, and we will have Tara Hughes, who's going to talk about imposter syndrome, and we're going to have Rick Payne. He's going to be talking about AWS DevSecOps. Both of them are lined up, ready to go. I've even got the registration lined up and ready to go, and as of 8:15 tonight, it's going to be available. I'll have the link of it ready at the end of the meeting, so you'll be able to go visit that. I know it's been kind of tricky as of late, just with everything going on, but rest assured, December 14th will be the next meeting. We're all ready to go. We got the folks. It should be great. January 25th will be the next meeting in 2021. That's, again, that one is the fourth Monday in January. And we will have Clay Posey and Matthew Canham from UCF research team talking about phishing. So that should be real exciting with what we end up doing there. And then February 22nd, we will have, that's the fourth Monday again, we'll have our next meeting. And that one is, we're going to do something a little different in that particular meeting, because the first part of the meeting, we're going to do our first ever book club discussion. So we're going to pick the book or go through and take a poll to see who would like which book we should do. So one of the perks of being at the meeting, you'll be able to pick. But we're going to ask folks in January who've had a chance to read the book by then to see if they want to be interested to participate in the panel. We'll do 4 people on the panel, and we want to pull from our membership. We've got a whole bunch of great members, and I think they've got a lot of experience, and I think this might be a fun way to get them involved in these meetings if we're going to be doing it like this for a while. So we need to figure out what book we want to read. So I've gone through and chatted with the members, the officers, to say or determine, hey, which books would be good? And Walter and I chatted the other day, and I know I chatted with the other officers in the past. So these are the 4 that I've come up with, or we've come up with, that we can choose from. Now, we don't have an actual polling tool within 8x8, so we'll use the chat. So The Cuckoo's Ed by Clifford Stoll is a classic book. Whether you've read these or not, let us know which one you would think would make for a good first book that we would read in our book club. And we'll probably do this quarterly throughout the year, or 2 or 3 or 4 times throughout the year. So I figure we've got pick between The Cuckoo's Egg, The Fifth Domain, by Richard A. Clarke, not C. Clarke. C. Clarke was the science fiction writer, but A. Clarke, he's former CIO for the White House, Sandworm by Andy Greenberg deals with the GRU, the Russian attacks against dealing with NotPetya and all those. And then the other one is Roger Grimes' A Data-Driven Computer Defense. So I got a number beside each one of these, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Go ahead and tell me. You can either type the book name in or just put the number in. Just throw in the number and let me know which book you think. And then whichever is the one with the most votes is what we'll go with. So I'll leave that up for a second. I left it over there. The Fifth Domain I have, Sandworm I have, and Data-Driven. Actually, I have all 4 of these books. And all 4 of them are fantastic. The Cougar's Egg is a great story dealing with like troubleshooting. One of the first early attacks that Clifford discovered through an accounting discrepancy. Fifth Domain, very government-based, but a lot of great information for us cybersecurity professionals. Sandworm, again, all about the GRU and the attacks on the U.S., industrial control systems and those kind of things. Roger Grimes, A Data-Driven Computer Defense, he just kind of literally rewrote the book on how you defend your networks and your systems with a lot of great concepts. It's a self-published book. It's available on Amazon and all the other places. But I think we've got a good result. Let's see. Wow, we got a lot of folks through it. This is cool. All right. It's got a handful of folks. 55, 1 or 3. Okay, 3. So finally, Cuckoo's Egg, number 1, Fifth Domain, number 2, Sandworm, number 3, and A Data-Driven Computer Defense, number 4. So very good. I'll just kind of let folks make their last minute decision there. I'll come back to that if folks need to see it again. But just to let you know that we're not the only game in town. One of the great things that we do like to do is partner with the other InfoSec chapters. Patrick Heisinger, I know Pat's on the call. He's listening in tonight, watching. But he's the chapter president over at ISSA Central Florida. They have their event this Friday, and it's free as well. So if you go out and visit centralflorida.issa.org, you can register for their event on Friday. Again, another great way to get CPEs. ISAC and CitrusSec, I know they're kind of on hold because of the whole social distancing and everything going on. But keep an eye out on those websites for stuff that's coming. Well, everybody knows that ISC Squared Congress is going on because we've talked about it all year. But, there's the ISACA website and the CitrusSec website if you're interested. And again, the deck I can make available. So with ISC Squared going on this week, want to let everybody know that the Center for Cyber Safety and Education, something that I'm very much a part of, hold very near and dear to my heart. Tomorrow at 4:30, KnowBe4 is presenting Cyber Bingo with Garfield. It's all virtual. We're going to do it from 4:30 to 6. It's $20 for bingo cards. You get 2 bingo cards. It's all electronic. Really well set up. I've seen the environment. I was playing with it last week. We did a test run. We're going to play 5 games. There's going to be some great prizes, gift cards, opportunity to win some Garfield stuff as well. This is open to the public, and I'll have the link here down at the bottom. And I will actually, what I will do is I'll drop into the chat when I get done with the slide. But the bingo cards are emailed to you, and you basically visit the website and you will select as the numbers are getting called out. You just literally click on the square for your square, and then you keep track of it. And then when you get bingo, you unmute your mic because we're all in a WebEx call, and you yell bingo. The cool thing is there's 2 fantastic hosts that are calling the numbers, me and my good buddy Javad. So JM Squared is back in town. So come on out. You know, if you get done with Congress tomorrow, it'll be a lot of fun. The money goes to a great cause. There's still plenty of cards and spots available. So do come out and participate because it will be really, really cool. I think you'll get a lot of fun. I just threw the link in the chat if you want to register. So, you know, it goes to a good cause. It helps the children. So Cyber Bingo, it's going to be a good time. All right. So 250 active members is what we're up to. We were at 247 last month, so we lost a few, but gained a bunch this month, I noticed. So again, thank you for all that are watching this afterward, but the 55, 56 that are on line now, thank you again for your membership and attending these events. If you want to kind of give back a little more, you can. They're always needing help developing the ISC squared exams. You can go out to the community page and sign up for it there. If you haven't been out to the community page, community.isc2.org, and you will be able to sign up for that. So, cool. Group hubs. We mentioned this last month. Want to mention it again. You do not need an ISC squared certification to join the community or to join our group hub. We had a couple folks sign up with us last month, but you can go out and register. When you do, send us an email. Let us know what your screen name is inside the community. You pick that when you sign up. Let us know, and then Walter will get you added into the group hub. We're going to use that. We're going to start using it in the new year for part of our messaging and communication, probably where we'll keep videos and presentations or links to the videos and the presentations as well. If you got any questions about it, you can email us at info@isc2chapter-centralflorida.org. Really cool. It's going to be a lot of fun to be our own area. I know we got LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, but this is an area that will be just for us members, and any one of our members can sign up. All righty. So now on to the fun stuff. I've done enough talking. I'm going to turn this over to my new best friend, Alethe, Denis. Actually, both Kaitlyn and Alethe are my new best friends. But real excited that Alethe is coming to talk to us tonight. She won the black badge for the social engineering capture the flag back in last summer. And if you remember, we heard from Ian Meyer a couple months ago. He was talking about it. He was more than humble than to finish up behind Alethe, because she just dominated in the social engineering. But she's vice president over at Dragonfly Security, CFO for Penguin. She's a founding member of the DEF CON 209 group. And in her spare time, I don't even think she sleeps. I think she keeps going all day. She's like an Energizer bunny, just keeps going and going and going. So I'm real excited. Alethe, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to stop sharing here. Or do I stop here? Yeah, I've stopped sharing, so you can take over. And it's all yours. So welcome, Alethe. Thank you again for joining. And Fishy Little Liars. I love the title. Take it away.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, James, and also for the invitation to hang out with all of you this evening. It is an absolute pleasure. Fishy Little Liars is some clickbait that I came up for the title of my presentation earlier this year. And over the course of this year, this talk has really evolved from the version that was seen at B-Side San Francisco to this most recent version that I delivered at Secure West Virginia conference virtually last month. This month, all the months are blending together. So this talk really dives into pretext development. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, we'll get into what a pretext is. But Fishy Little Liars, for those of you who are not familiar with the show Pretty Little Liars, the villain of the show was nicknamed A. So I'm going to go ahead and spoil the end of the entire talk and just disclose that right up front, I'm A. My name is Alethe, and I am most well known for being honored by DEF CON with a black badge for winning the social engineering capture the flag contest in SE Village. I also have the bragging rights of a second silver and a first black badge win for the Trace Labs OSINT CTF, where they crowdsource hackers to discover information that will help law enforcement locate missing persons potentially. I'm the vice president at Dragonfly Security and a founding member of the DEF CON DC 209 group here in Northern California. And today we're going to be talking about how you can create really custom comprehensive pretexts. And this is more of an adversarial side of the coin when it comes to phishing and vishing, as well as physical assessments on the security red team side. So first of all, we're going to talk about what pretexts are, pretext points of failure, the goal of a pretext, and then the creation of pretexts. Then we're going to talk about the 6 universal principles of influence. This will be really helpful for any of you that are in sales. How to avoid objections, and then how to perform vishing, or voice elicitation, which is over the phone, phishing. We're going to talk about the process of OSINT, reconnaissance, or open source intelligence gathering, to help you come up with more customized pretexts using social media predominantly. And then we're going to talk about how to put those custom pretexts together and a few samples, and then we'll get into questions. Quick disclaimer: don't do bad things, don't break the law, you won't get in trouble, and don't hack the host. This is all just housekeeping. As far as this presentation goes, all of this is shared with the idea that it will be used for performing assessments and for education of security professionals in the defense against these types of tactics. So we're going to move on to pretty little pretexts, and first we'll be discussing what is a pretext. So the definition of a pretext is that it is a purpose or motive alleged or an appearance assumed in order to cloak the real intention or state of affairs. And I thought it was really neat the way that this word breaks out in the Latin base for the word pretext, in that it means to prepare and to weave a disguise or an outward display, essentially a mask. And so that's one of the reasons why I picked the talk title, is because masks, I think, were a very fluid theme within the context of the Pretty Little Liars TV show, because there's a lot of deception and mystery in that. So when we're talking about a pretext, I personally view a pretext as a character. It is something that you are, something you do, and something that you have to substantiate those first 2 things, all for the purpose of gaining the something that you need. And in the context of phishing, we're talking really about a character who has a job, who's privy to information that would help support their lie that they are that person with that job, all to achieve gaining access to information or learning new information from a target. Basically, it's your cover story. So what are the points of failure that could potentially happen during the course of using a pretext? Things to keep in mind while you're developing a pretext are that they can fail on these 3 main points. In my experience, preparation, confidence, and simplicity are the keys to a successful pretext. And within preparation, reconnaissance and OSINT, or the gathering of open source information, is critical to coming up with a pretext that is believable and rooted somewhat in truth. For example, a good example of where pretext would completely fall apart is if I were pretending to be tech support to fix your Windows computer and you don't actually have a Windows computer. So immediately that breaks the veil of the pretext and you're out of the game, so to speak. Confidence is super important, and this is something that does not come naturally to everyone. But I'm going beyond just natural confidence and talking about confidence in the knowledge that you have and the knowledge of the target's business, their job, their expectations of you, and your ability to use a pretext that may be authoritative in nature, whether that's positioning yourself as an expert, like I am Todd from IT, and I'm calling you to talk about your computer, or whether you're actually using the authority pretext in the manner of I am your boss, or I am associated with your boss, something like that. That confidence is really going to be essential to giving the target the feeling that they can trust you and that they are obligated to follow your instructions. And then simplicity. I've seen many a SECTF contestant try to put props, complicated accents, very detailed backstories, And they really put a lot of thought into these things, which is wonderful, but they try to include all of it within a few minutes of conversation, and it can tend to overwhelm the target. And you actually give them many different avenues for them to object to what you are saying. And it can create opportunities for them to come up with questions that you don't want them to ask. So keeping things simple, having a backstory in mind, but not divulging any of those details that aren't absolutely necessary to reach your goal. Those are things you can keep in mind when developing pretext, that it is easy for us to get into the habit of, when a child breaks something, they give you this long, elaborate excuse. And I think a lot of us have a tendency to offer too many details, and that actually tips off the target to feel like something isn't quite right. So making sure that you keep these 3 things in mind when you're coming up with creating a pretext is going to help you create something that's more believable and that is less likely to break that veil of your pretext by giving the target opportunities for all of your good lies to fall apart. And what I mean by all of your good lies falling apart is the goal of a pretext is to fly under the radar of your target's conscious mind. Your subconscious is continuously scanning the environment around you. You'll notice that when you are driving, you only seem to notice the car that is too close to your rear end after it's already too close to your rear end. And this is because your subconscious, while it is continuously scanning for these threats, will only actually notify your conscious mind that it needs help in making a conscious decision when it's identified a threat. And so essentially your subconscious only goes, oh my gosh, no, I need an adult, when it's too late. And we want to make sure that we lull that subconscious into a state of, this is okay, this is fine. We want to avoid tipping off their suspicions and making them feel uncomfortable to the point where their subconscious would say, hey, I need an adult, somebody needs to make a decision because something here isn't right, start asking questions. Because asking questions is the best way to rip apart a pretext. So into the next phase here, we're going to talk a little bit about influence and how to elicit information using the powers of persuasion and compliance. And I kind of hinted at this, but a lot of these principles are used in the course of marketing, sales, self-improvement, and a variety of different industries. So a lot of these principles can actually go with you from industry to industry and role to role. And you can use a lot of these things for the purposes of good. You could use these things as a leader within your company to build your staff up and become more successful. But there's also the negative side of the principles of influence, where the bad actors can use these things against us to trick us or scam us into performing the actions and giving the information that they want from us. So first of all, we're going to talk about consistency. And this is the desire to be consistent with things that we've already done. A bad actor could take advantage of your need to be consistent by asking you to comply with very small requests. Your name, where you work, your phone number, your email, what software you use to view your email, and then escalate into more complex and more sensitive information by requesting things after you've already complied with those things. In the beginning, making you feel like you've built a rapport and you can trust them, and now you're less likely to object to giving them the more sensitive information about your company or about your software, etc. So it's good to keep in mind that you should never feel like you are ever in a position not to say something. You're not going to be rude, but you will politely object to information that is more sensitive than what that person should be privy to. Something as simple as, where did you say you worked again? Who did you say you were calling on behalf of? Those types of questions can start to pull apart the pretext of a bad actor. And you can use these questions to disarm those people, especially scam artists, by just asking those extra 2 or 3 questions before you comply with requests. or escalating them to validate them. Scarcity is often leveraged in sales as the last one or limited time offers. But with regards to pretext, it's usually a, hey, I'm just getting off of work here in the next 20 minutes. I'd really like to wrap this up before the end of my day. I'm sure you want to take off too. Do you just have 5 minutes to go through this list with me really quick so we can knock this out? That artificial time constraint is something that a bad actor would use to try to manipulate you into complying with the request and basically getting out of your way so that you can carry on with your day. Reciprocity is the idea of giving something for something. In sales, typically this is seen when you get the free gift if you sign up for the bigger product. With regards to pretexting, usually it's something very small, and it can even be an item of information, whether correct or incorrect. And by that I mean, the best example that I've seen of this is what I call the same name game. And this has been used by previous Black Badge winners like Whitney Maxwell. She goes by Whitney Haxwell on Twitter, so it often confuses me. But anyway, Whitney, as soon as she got somebody on the phone, she would say that their name was her name, if that made sense, or that their name was her spouse or a family member's name, somebody that she knew and loved, and then try to build instant rapport with that person by having the same name as them. When I use this, what I often do is I say that I've named my child their name. So I have a daughter with that name, I have a son with that name. And the reason why is because I feel like it means so much more if I love their name enough to give it to a child rather than it just being a random accident. And that really builds rapport very well. So essentially, be suspicious of people with your same name. No, that's not what I'm saying. But be suspicious of people who try to build rapport with you instantly and are very, very energetic about doing that. Finding common ground with you, using things like similarity, same sports teams, same, favorite TV shows, same anything that you share on social media along those lines. And we'll get to more of that later, but be a little bit cautious if somebody seems like they have too much in common with you, or they're trying too hard to find similarities and make friends with you very quickly. One example of where the same name game failed a salesperson miserably was when he decided to tell me that his Filipino mother had my same first name. And I stopped for a minute and I asked, your mother's named Alethe? And he said, yes. And this was halfway through the conversation. And he hadn't been doing horribly up until that point. But I'm thinking, there's like 4 Alethes on the planet who are alive, maximum. I know at least 2 of them, and none of them are your mom. And the name is Greek. So this is highly unlikely. So actually it completely backfired on him. And it had completely the opposite effect, because I immediately felt like I was being lied to, and that completely broke any trust or rapport that he'd built with me at that point. So just be cautious if you are using these tactics in an assessment, but as somebody who could be a potential target, don't allow somebody to authenticate with you strictly based on the fact that you like them, because that is something that people will absolutely use against you in one of these scam or hacking social engineering type scenarios. They're going to use rapport and likability to build your confidence in them, and then leverage that into gaining your trust and ultimately influencing you to do what they would like you to do. So that's why this is so important, because all of these things will be used in a pretext to accomplish the goal, which is asking you for the information that they want. Some people that I train to perform these social engineering assessments and to make these phone calls, they do forget to ask for the sale, so to speak. Close the deal, get the information. So while they're so busy trying to avoid objections and fly under the radar, and they're doing everything right, they don't actually ask for the info. So that's why I have this slide here. And in our situation, I would say, as somebody who is a defender, you want to be aware if somebody is too focused on asking for one specific information or one specific data point, so that you know that there might not be something right here. If somebody's too fixated on achieving the goal of finding one specific piece of information and the conversation starts to get a little strange, because even though you're friends now, you feel like they've crossed a line, you have to be confident in yourself enough to challenge them and ask them why they need the information and verify that they are in fact entitled to having that piece of information. And if somebody is acting maliciously, they will typically try to escalate the timeline on you, or they'll become belligerent and rude, in which case you know that this is 9 times out of 10 going to be a scam or a threat of some kind. So if somebody's too focused on specific information, you want to make sure that, is my slide advancing for you or no? Okay, let me see if it does it now. Ooh, I think I froze. Oh, there we go. Okay. So just be weary of people who try to be your friend too quickly, who are a little bit too overeager to establish rapport with you in a seemingly benign situation, and who are too fixated on certain pieces of information, because those might be very thinly veiled pretext goals that they're trying to achieve. So now we're going to talk about sneaky little liars and OSINT. So what is OSINT? OSINT is open source intelligence. And briefly, we are going to discuss 3 main types of OSINT that are used to create believable custom pretexts. Everything in the wheel in front of you could be considered OSINT. This and far beyond that. The billboard on the side of the road on the freeway is technically OSINT. Today, we're going to talk predominantly about internet open source intelligence and gathering data and information from websites, forums, and specifically social media, because that is where it's at right now. We talked about OSINT being open source intelligence. HUMINT is what you would gain from somebody that you called during the course of a voice elicitation assessment or pretexting call. And then SOCMINT is the silly term for social media intelligence. It has nothing to do with socks, I promise. Actually, it does have a lot to do with socks, but I think that's a different talk. Business OSINT is what I do most often when I take on new business clients. And this is my typical process for doing an assessment of a business from the OSINT perspective. Basically, I want to see what information about my target company is out there on the internet. So I'm going to start in the first place, which I think most of us kind of bypass just because we, go to Google and we want to look for all of the salacious stuff. But really, it's important to start first with the company website before you move on to things like Glassdoor and Indeed and LinkedIn, and start scouring the company reviews and looking into job postings to see if they drop their technology into the requirements of those jobs, and various other things. Then we're going to look at employees. Potentially, we've identified employees through LinkedIn, or we've identified employees through geotagged Instagram photos that are geotagged to the company's building or one of their branch locations. Then we're going to look at Facebook and see what we can learn from the company's branding and their Facebook page. And finally, we're going to have kind of a good idea of where we're going with this. What's the culture of the company? What types of vendors do they use? And then we're going to start to look at more of the specific information. We'll use Google Dorks to find specific things. For example, in the most recent SECTF contest, I wanted to call their internal IT help desk offshore. And it took me like 3 weeks on and off of creative Google Dork searches to find a random PDF on a server that was not at all associated with the target company, that had their technology policy in it, and the phone number was in there. And it really did take some maneuvering with the Google Dorks, but ultimately I found it. And this is the stage where you get into those finer details. Start using your web tools, any OSINT tools that you like, and then sort of compile all of this learned data into something. A lot of people have a variety of different note-taking applications. It really doesn't matter what it is. It could be a pencil and a piece of paper, but trying to kind of collect all of what you know together in one place is going to help you get through the next part of this pretext development phase. So now we're going to take a trip through a company that I know and love and do this process through their different web presences, whether that's their official website or their social media, and take a look at what this looks like in real life. Again, I will note all of this stuff is out, open, and completely publicly visible on the internet, so I am not obfuscating any of it. So you can wince with me. Here we go. So the company website, explore their leadership, look at the leadership's bios, look at their contact information. Some businesses I've seen will disclose the name, the job title, the location, the direct phone number, and the email address, and a variety of other things about their branch managers and several other people in leadership. This scares me, but it's out there. Look at their governance, careers, job postings, we talked about briefly, benefits, the culture of the company, mission statements, their charitable giving efforts, any current notices, things that could be related to, say, the pandemic. Because if you're not familiar with that process, then you're probably going to meet some friction if you're on the phone with somebody and they're like, but that's not how we're doing things now. So just be aware of what the current processes are that you can learn from the website. Then you're going to dig into the company review websites, check out Glassdoor, my favorite, Indeed, but don't limit yourself to those two main sites. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of businesses now, especially the Fortune 500, are very engaged with their brand reputations, and they've taken ownership of these pages on these sites, and they're monitoring them. So anything that would be considered super salacious or very personal information, they can have those things removed. But if you look at sites like Great Place to Work, Comparability, Career Bliss, Vault, The Job Crowd, Kununu, those ones are less monitored, less frequently monitored by businesses. And you can actually find some really, really meaty pieces of information and reviews on those sites. I've seen everything from internal affairs and all kinds of crazy stuff mentioned in these types of reviews. So have fun. Don't limit yourself to just the text reviews. Have a look at the pictures, and don't stick to the surface of the picture. Look at the entire picture. We're looking in the background. We're looking around them. We're looking at technology. We're looking at physical locations. We're looking at equipment, hardware, software, if we've got open monitors. And for example, in this very top left photo, this is one of my favorite finds of all time. And I know it's not relevant to the target company in this particular example, but it is too good not to show. This picture has the employee's badge, resumes of prospective employees, an open monitor. And I've actually cropped this picture down because the open monitor was that scary. There was open email application, several open applications on the bar at the bottom. You could see all of their desktop and an open email, as well as vendor business cards and a variety of other things, all in one photo. This was terrifying to find this just sitting out there on the internet. Then you've got another photo where it names an area manager as well as the new hire, and I could potentially pretext as the new hire and say that my area manager so-and-so had asked me to call to get whatever information it was. Just, there's way too much out there on the interwebs, and most of it tends to sit on social media of some kind, which is what Glassdoor, Indeed, LinkedIn, and all these things are. Another example of the review website photos are these four. These really help me because if I can see what their naming convention is of their conference rooms, for example, then I can say I'm running really late. I'm supposed to be in training room 113, or if they name them with cities or colors or whatever, I can come up with a pretty believable reason for me to be late and that I am, entitled to whatever information I'm about to ask. So to build up these portfolios of reconnaissance and information about the target, we want to look at these photos for things like events, awards, their physical security, what access controls do they have in place, badges, food vendors, physical technology, software, their dress code. If they dress in jeans, you don't want to show up in slacks, and vice versa. The meeting room convention, naming, building layout. This is all going to help to substantiate your pretext, especially if you're challenged in a situation where they do ask a couple of extra questions. You could hypothetically act like you'd already been there by saying, oh yeah, I know, just around the corner from this, or over by that, or something like that. Or in the course of just like the dead space of the conversation, you can make a crack about the break rooms or the cubicles or something like that. Moving into the corporate brand media, the videos, photos, social media posts, and the things that the brand actually creates and shares themselves. A lot of brands are trying to attract and retain their existing talent right now. This is a major focus of a lot of brands, especially now during the pandemic. And what's even scarier about that is that while they're trying to reassure clients in the time of COVID-19, they're also sharing all their employees' personal homes and families and a number of other scary things with the world. They're trying to show their connection to the community and demonstrate their products and services, but all of their employees and their marketing and their media people are at home. And so this can actually give us a look into the types of technology that they use and the way that the employees behave and interact with each other, and give us a really good idea of the culture, but also disclose some of the other items that we've already talked about. Then don't forget about mapping websites, and don't limit yourself to just one, because each one of these mapping websites is going to give you a snapshot in time of this building. Overhead, Street View, Bing Maps, Yandex Maps, MapQuest, all the Google Maps. I mean, check every year. Like if they did last year, 2 years ago, 2012, check all of those street views, because with businesses like these, it's such an elaborate process to have a vendor approved that if you can find a vendor truck or delivery vehicle or something like that, even in the past 5 years, I would say it's probably pretty safe bet that they're still using the same vendor. So don't limit yourself, and make sure that you are checking all the things. And if you do find something, then you can try to corroborate that on a different platform through a job posting or something else for somebody that would do a role that would need that vendor. Finally, we're going to move on to the corporate social media, and you can use their official pages to find things like employees, LinkedIn, Facebook comments on posts, Twitter, people that are actively tagging things to the location of the company, and Instagram. Identifying these oversharers can actually help us to find people who are more cautious about saying where they work, but are less reserved with the information they share. So you've got one person who's very open about where they work, but they don't share things that are confidential. And then you use their material that they've published to identify their coworkers who are reserved about saying where they work, but share openly the types of technology and phones and other things within their context of their work that they're involved with. And then you kind of bridge the gap between the two. Finally, employee social media. I can't thank the universe enough for employee social media, because it is the bread and butter of my existence. Employee social media is great. Employees love to overshare, they love to brag, they have horrible OPSEC, and it is our responsibility to teach these people the error of their ways. But in the meantime, it's kind of fun to point out all the mistakes they're making. Employee social media is gold. So let's see what we can find. Looking at these 3 pictures, we are in the break room of a retail store. We can see printers, phones, computers, open monitors, physical security, back doors, Where everything is located in the back room is super helpful if you're ever given the opportunity to get into one of these back rooms during a physical assessment or something like that. It's good to know where you're going to go because it helps you save time. Moving on to some more images, there's the internal inner workings of, I am imagining an area of AT&T's infrastructure that is not supposed to be anywhere on the open internet, along with a couple of different fundraising opportunities, and we'll get into why those are useful in a bit. But in the center, we have a company-issued laptop and open with many applications there on the bottom bar. And for those who are up on what each one of those icons are, you'll know that that's pretty telling and important and useful information. Then on the lower right, this is actually a video that was screen capped off of Instagram, and that is an AT&T store's inventory door. That is the door that goes into where all of the phones, the safe, the deposit, everything is in there. And you're gonna think that I'm nuts for pointing it out, but you have no idea how often those rooms get knocked over. So having that out there on the internet, not cool. Tagged to the exact store location where that room is, even more not cool. Speaking of not cool, the ever popular "I got a new badge at work today" photo. So again, these are all out on the internet, completely publicly available, and I'm not obfuscating anything because I'm trying to demonstrate how scary this is. And if I obfuscate it, it kind of dulls that effect. So this is an employee badge. It shows clearly the format of what the badge looks like, as well as when it expires. So we know that this design won't be questioned until at least 2023, even if they stop making this design today, which I highly doubt. So we've got a badge there for an actual corporate employee, but on the left, we have a badge of an individual who's a guest. And the reason why I point this one out is because all guests require an escort. And there you can see that the escort is labeled as a 2-initial 4-number number. This is an AT&T employee ID. Every AT&T employee has an ID number that is 6 characters, and it's their first initial, last initial, and then a number. And in some cases, it's first initial, last initial, 3 numbers, and a letter. Ask me how I know. Also, each one of these is also their internal email address. So this is their @AT&T.com email address, is that 6 characters at AT&T.com. So now I've got a lot of information about this individual who is allowed to escort people, and I can use this to work backwards to find out who that is. Scary stuff. Finally, I think this is finally, no, we got some more. So this is another example of some back rooms. We have a TikTok dance in a black room, and we have another back room where we can see where the restroom is and the electrical and some other infrastructure for the building. We've got open monitors, secure areas. That one on the bottom left, that is inside of an inventory room. This is all really, really, really not great. And for most people, this seems completely innocuous, but from the experience of learning about these types of attacks and putting together assessments that use these types of tactics, all of this information can be used to create a layered approach. So we start with the stuff we know, we get a little bit more advanced or a little bit more secured or sensitive information, and then we just keep going until we get the most sensitive or gain access to systems. This is 2 images of the interior of the inventory rooms. So if I'm paying attention to social media that day and I'm watching this store because I'm planning to knock it over, I know exactly how many phones, iPads, and other items they have in it. I also know where to go to get to it. And if you look behind the gentleman with the gray shirt, you can see their time lock safe. This is all very bad. So one note here is to kind of round off the employee social media. You may think that this picture actually doesn't disclose very much, but to an attacker, this is very telling of one thing. And I'm going to give you a second to look at the picture and tell me what you've learned about AT&T, aside from the fact that they probably have an agreement with Jabra for their webcams.
Oh, I know.
Go ahead.
Let somebody else.
If anybody wants to chime in, you're welcome, or I'll just dive in and give the answer up here in a second. Nobody wants to participate. Okay. So they use Cisco WebEx. Bingo. There you go. Thank you. Thank you for jumping in. Trying to make sure everybody's still awake. But yes, they use WebEx, and it's just that teeny little icon there. And now I have something that I could potentially build an entire phishing email campaign around. And I know for a fact that it's valid in the assumption that they use that. So lastly, I wanted to share from an employee social media standpoint how I was able to put together an entire pretext from 3 pictures. I explored AT&T headquarters location on Instagram. I found a picture posted by Cafe 208 that was tagged to the headquarters. I wondered, is Cafe 208 adjacent to, around, near, or inside of the headquarters? Like, is this their cafeteria? And I was able to find the Cafe 208 profile and then confirm from their bio that they are in fact inside of AT&T headquarters, serving up fresh, flavorful, and unique dishes every day. I've got their contact telephone number and their Yahoo email account that they use for their email for catering. And then finally, scrolling through their profile, I was able to find another picture, which wasn't geotagged to the headquarters, but was posted by them, that showed their employee badges. And I'm thinking, that hologram on the AT&T employee badge is kind of hard to duplicate. So what if I create a pretext where I am going to be an employee of the cafe, and I can make a Cafe 208 badge, and it's probably more likely to pass the examination of an AT&T employee because they're not as familiar with a badge that is not their own. And that would be a very plausible physical assessment pretext was, I'm a new hire at the cafe, here's my badge, look at my name tag, going into work. So that's all stuff that is in seemingly harmless photos that can be leveraged against an organization that isn't even the target against the target. That's why vendor management is very important. So compilation, we're going to talk about perfect little pretexts and how we create those. We're using the data intelligence information that we found, and that intelligence is what informs our pretext. So we're using all the data that we found, and we're using that to create this solid, believable character and disguise, our mask for our assessment. So we're going to take stock of the information that we found. We're going to determine what options we have. We're going to make a decision, and then we're going to ultimately create this story or this pretext. First, we have to decide the basics. Are we going to be internal or external? Internal, sometimes it's hard to pull off, but it definitely works the majority of the time. Authority or empathy. I am kind of a nervous, twitchy person, especially in high stress situations. So it's easier for me to fall on the empathy side and beg for help and look like a mess than it is for me to be an authoritative figure. And, in this world, biases do exist, even though we would love it to be a perfect world where they don't. And it's easier for me to ask for help and get it than to demand information and get it as an authority figure. So that's the way I tend to go. Also, you want your own tone, style, your demeanor, all of that to match your pretext. So if you're a nervous wreck and you're asking for help, it's fine. But if you're a nervous wreck and you're trying to be in a position of authority, the two don't match, and that can tip off your target. You want to align your biases with the other person, emulate the culture of the company, of their brand, use their jargon and keywords. If you call and ask for something in a system, say for example, AT&T, they have a system called Opus, They call it Opus. And if you called and said, I want you to go into OPUS and get this information for me, they would be like, huh? And that would be the first indicator that you were not an AT&T employee. You want to determine the theme of your pretext, build some rapport, link the ideas together for the different pieces of information that you want to get. I'm going to loosely refer to those as flags. So memorize the flags of the information that you want to gain, and then try to weave those into a natural conversation rather than, giving them a battery of questions or a survey, because that's going to make them feel weird. Be prepared to bring them back in if they go off track. Also be prepared to segue. If you get like a really chatty person that just wants to tell you all the things, don't stop them. But be able to pivot dynamically in the conversation so that you can take advantage of opportunities, but also bring the person back in if they start to get off track or give you too many objections. So you want to make sure that you use all the data you find to then determine who you're going to target, who are they, what you need, what are your flags, what information do you have, and then that tells you who you need to be today. So who you are depends on the information that you have. We're not coming up with like this incredible pretext and then trying to go out and find the information to support it. That's really hard, and it doesn't really work very well. So an example of a recent one that I did was we had a company that was going to have a 5K run. They put it out all over their social media that they were participating in this 5K. It was going to be a virtual thing. You run it on your own time and then report your time back later. But the race wasn't going to happen until after our engagement. This phase of our engagement was over. So what we decided to do was we would be the t-shirt vendor. We are the official t-shirt vendor for the 5K. We want to make sure that we have the right sizes for everybody. Please put in your credentials and fill out this form with your t-shirt size and what you want on the back of it, or whatever you want to throw in there for extra pizzazz. And then you're able to get login credentials, because people love free pizza. And it doesn't matter what form that free pizza comes in, but free pizza works every single time. And in this case, it was been there, done that. They wanted to get their t-shirt. And so we cleaned house on that one. And it was a lot of fun to put that pretext together. A second example would be one that I've used for phone phishing, and I actually used this one in the SECTF as well. This goes back to that cafeteria series of pictures. I said, I am an employee. I'm an employee of your cafeteria vendor. I'm coming on site to do corporate training. I've been stuck in your IVR for like an hour and I can't get through to the cafeteria. And I was wondering if you just had like 5 seconds to go over a couple questions with me, because I'm supposed to be on site tomorrow and I got to leave for my flight soon. So I've used that artificial time constraint pretty hard right there. But I want to gain some just very high level information about what I have to do to get into the building, to get through security. And then is there going to be IT on site to help me if I need to set up my projector? And then a variety of other questions about their technology and their software and their phones and things like that. And I used all of this effectively against somebody who had nothing to do with that cafeteria whatsoever, and was actually in a compliance type role within the target company. And it wasn't the person that I had hoped I would reach, but it still worked because the pretext was simple enough that it could be applied or altered or changed dynamically in the moment to be used on most any employee that picked the phone up. And that's the goal there. And then finally, another example of a pretext that I used, and also in the SECTF and many times after that, because unfortunately it works a little too well, and this sounds really horrible because I'm targeting their charitable side, but trust but verify. This organization had a person that was responsible for managing all of the charitable giving. This person was highly empathetic, and from the social media, I could tell that they were not only in a position to help, but they were very empathetic, and they were a parent and several other things. They had a child that was differently abled, and they had many causes that they were involved in outside of work as well. So when I called I said that I had sent them an email with a PDF the week before, which I had not done. And had they got it? And they said no, of course. And then I said, well, if I resend it, this is your email address that I have, which I knew was wrong. So there's me giving the thing. And they said, oh no, that's not my email address. It's actually this. So a lot of times, bad actors can use bad information to get you to confirm the good information. So just be weary of getting trapped into that, making that knee-jerk response of, no, you're wrong, I'll give you the right stuff. And then I essentially obligated her to comply and open that PDF attachment when she received my actual fish, because now she felt like she'd let me down by not responding the previous week. And so it guaranteed that she would open that attachment when she did receive it. So horrible. I'm going to say it again. Everything that I've talked about today is strictly for the purposes of performing assessments with signed SOWs. This is not anything that I leverage against companies or people for my own gain. They pay me to do this. Because they want to see where their gaps are. They want to see how they can improve. And I want them to fail in a situation that is safe and that they can learn from without having any negative impact to their organizations or to themselves personally. I also firmly believe in never using pretexts that are based in fear, harassment, and just the ugliest sides of manipulation. Everything that I use in the course of an assessment will be very seemingly benign and boring. Like the most negative I'll get is that annoying person that they just can't get off the phone. So in summary, pretexts are informed by the discovered information or intelligence or data that you find out there on the internet. That's the easiest place to find it, especially right now, unless you're doing physical reconnaissance and checking out the physical exterior of the building and things like that, which is great, but not always possible. Finally, social media intelligence, or SOCMINT, is a tremendous resource for phishing. And so making sure that we are educating organizations to stop the hemorrhaging of data that is just flooding the internet about their, inner workings and their technology and their processes and all these things is super duper important. And this is what I focus on when I do in-person security awareness training. Predominantly, we talk about how to keep the user safe in all aspects of their life, but to stop oversharing. And then finally, to create believable pretexts, you need intelligence, insight, inspiration, that creative spark, the ability to influence, and then some imagination. And so if you're strong enough to carry your own secrets, then you'll probably be able to go pretty far in this. And by understanding how attackers are leveraging these psychological and OSINT principles against you, you can better defend against these types of attacks. And that is it for me. So thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope that this was beneficial to go over. And again, thank you so much for having me to the broad group and for the invitation, James.
Oh, the pleasure was all mine. I'm so glad you were able to join us. One of the, I don't know if you can see the chat, Alethe, but somebody said Alethe is the modern day Robert Redford character from Sneakers, which I will agree. I'm
going to take that under advisement.
I think one of the big takeaways for me, at least with OSINT and with your course that I took with the Vishing and the Pretext and everything else, is having that awareness of what is out there about you or your organization that can be used against you, so that if you have that awareness, then, if somebody tries to, talk to you about your cafeteria food or back storerooms or computer systems, you kind of go, okay, is this something somebody should know? But it's always the trust but verify, Where are you calling from? Who did you say you were?
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's real. I mean, it really comes down to just asking one more question and just taking a beat. And it sounds silly, but we all learn stop, drop, and roll. And I try to hit that point with, stop, for a second, drop the mouse, and like roll what information they've shared with you around in your brain, especially if you're feeling like you're making an emotional response, and then try to let your logical brain do the work.
Right. Yeah, that reflex. Does anybody, we've got a couple of minutes for some quick questions if anybody has any. You just need to unmute and ask. We'll see if we have anybody. By the way, while we wait for somebody to ask a question, if they are, Ian was on earlier. I don't know if he's still on or not, but he was excited to be able to sit and watch because you didn't get to see it at
yeah, he was a little busy. Yeah, Ian is a wonderful friend. I've had a ton of fun hanging out with him in the SE Village the last couple of years, and so we're gonna get him into that black badge territory here next time.
Oh boy, there we go. Somebody did have a question. Any great sources on how to control the hemorrhaging of OSINT and striking a balance that does not damage marketing and PR efforts?
Really open communication with your marketing and your PR teams. This is something that I've struggled with a lot over the course of my career, just internally for businesses that I worked for. Like, why are all of our computers open in all of our day in the life of marketing campaigns? And so when you start to bring awareness to your marketing team and the people who are developing this content about those concerns, you'll open their eyes and they'll start to see what you're saying, and that will help a lot. But I know that in the context of security awareness training, this is something that everyone should really be aware of. So I would try to work that into your security awareness training at every point that it makes sense. Just keep hitting it.
I was going to say, a lot of the time, marketing and PR materials are vetted, they're checked. Legal looks at it, comms look at it, they're reviewing it to make sure there's nothing revealing. It's the employees that are working in these companies that post stuff, and that's where you're finding a lot of that kind of. But then again,
Absolutely.
marketing PR contact pages, where you're going through.
It doesn't help to have a social media policy if your employees don't know what's in it. So just ticking the box on the compliance training is not enough. It's all about conversations and really connecting with your employees on those topics.
Yeah, letting the employees know that what the policy is, what the intent is, and what impact it has on them.
Right. The why is very important to some folks. Yeah.
What the WIFM? What's in it for me? The last question I had real quick is Robert was asking, what kind of Google Docs do you use most?
Oh, I love file type and site, and really looking for PDF documents with specific phrases is usually what helps me most in the course of my recon.
Do you like to use site or do you like to use in URL?
Site.
Okay.
I do. In URL, I feel like if I do a lot of scrolling, but if I refine my scope down to narrow, then I have the opportunity to kind of miss a lot of stuff. So that's why I kind of keep things broad. For example, trying to find the PDF that had that internal IT number on it, it was that I was narrowing my scope too much to the domain of that actual company. And then when I just searched broadly on the internet with the company name, it came up. So just keep trying different things. Okay.
That sounds cool. Awesome. Final question for me, and it's more for the members. Are we able to get a copy of the presentation?
Absolutely. And yes, I do spell things wrong from time to time. Thank you for that note. But yes, I can absolutely share a PDF of the presentation with you for distribution.
Fantastic. Alethe, again, thank you very much for joining and taking time out of your busy day. I know you've got a big family, as we all do, families to go home to. Because you're out on the West Coast, and this is one of the great things with what has been one of the pros for doing virtual events is I can get friends and colleagues and acquaintances from all over the country to present without having to come to Orlando. So again, I appreciate your time, and again, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. So thank you for.
Yay, cool. All right, so moving on, I am very excited. I had the pleasure of meeting Kaitlyn back at RSA. Back in February. I think I'd connected with her on LinkedIn at some point, and she was asking, hey, I'm going to be at RSA. Anybody want to talk security? And I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, it was my first time at RSA, so always looking to make new connections. And I reached out. We ended up having a coffee, and we've kept in touch. And now Kaitlyn is the co-founder and president of a company called Battleship, and she'll go into more detail with it, but working to help people find employment in the security industry with interview and resume type tips. And so she's going to come in today and present to us about all that. So, and she's got a great podcast, Security Economy podcast, that's out there. So, Kaitlyn, you can click on the little sharing icon. It's in the lower left, little computer screen with the up arrow. You can click that and take over.
Okay, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here with you this evening. I'm just going to make sure I'm showing the right thing.
Well, I see you. We've got your video. So let me know when you get. Do you see the sharing desktop icon?
I do. I'm sharing. Okay. I think I'm sharing the application. I want to just share the application here.
We see the Eiffel Tower.
I just turned off mine, so now it may work. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. I think it's showing. Here we go. Let's see.
And there we go. Yep. Oh, we've got your, let's see, we've got your PowerPoint slide deck there. Yeah. We don't see a presentation.
Good. So let's make sure that I put, this is the right one. Do you see the right thing?
That's it.
You're okay, awesome. So everyone, super excited to be here with you. And I would love to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing at Battleship and why I'm here tonight to talk to you about cybersecurity career planning. I had a very interesting path into security. I got reorged into security at IBM. Knew nothing about it at the time. I had a master's in public health and ended up falling in love with security and getting a master's in cybersecurity at Brown in 2018. And then in 2019, my husband and I founded Battleship with a co-founder that I went to Brown with. His name is Tim Johnston. So it's the three of us. We're a startup, and we're focused on building the structures for people to break in or advance in cybersecurity. When we started a freelancer platform that we still have. We have a narrow scope helping primarily SaaS technology companies with compliance initiatives like SOC 2, penetration tests for SOC 2, or GDPR planning and things like that. And as we did that work and started talking to a lot of information security professionals, it became really apparent that there were systemic issues in the field for people to break in and advance. And I talk to people all the time about this. I interview people just about their career paths or what they're dealing with at work, or, you know, they've just graduated from college and they're looking for a job, and what does the whole job landscape look like? So we thought, how can we help people break in or advance? Really, that's the base mission. And we decided to expand the platform from just doing this freelancing work, doing this consulting, to how can we build courses and partner with InfoSec practitioners on courses that can help people find their path, that can help them land the job they want, that can help them navigate the whole job market. And how can we help people really connect with each other? So we have an academy, and we've also just launched a mentoring platform that I'll talk a little bit about later. But one thing I want to say is that I am not a recruiter. People ask me all the time if I'm a recruiter, and I'm not. So don't send me a resume unless, you know, I do resume reviews for people, but I can't go send it to get you a job. That's a little bit about me and what we're doing at Battleship. And I'm going to be going through with you a few different things. So the first is, what are the three things that no one likes to tell you about the cybersecurity job market? And this information I'll be sharing is from a lot of research. So I talk to a lot of recruiters, even though I'm not one. I talk to a lot of people who are job hunting. I interview hiring managers. I'm in all different levels of the hiring chain. and find out, what's really going on here. I'm going to share some of my tips on how to find your path into cybersecurity or up. So this really applies at whatever career stage you're at. We'll talk a little bit about business speak and why you need it, what's going on with learning to talk the language of the line of business and how it will make a big difference in your career. And then we'll end with the importance of mentorship. And I have purposefully left time here so that you can ask questions. There's a lot of things that I do research on and that I cover that aren't in the presentation, including things like what resumes need to look like and what needs to happen in an interview and what are things that people are looking for. So please feel free to ask any questions you have when we get to the end. What I'm hoping you'll leave with are these main points here. So if, there's going to be a lot of information, but you're going to see some data about the job landscape. Some of the best tools that I found and ways to think about how to find your path in and up in security. We'll do a mini exercise and talk about a book recommendation on the business speak topic. And then we'll wrap up on a discussion about where and how to find a mentor and why do I think mentoring is so important for you at any stage of your career. So with that, I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, have seen a chart that looks like this or some form of this. This is from Henry Jang. And it's just looking at all of the cybersecurity domains. And when we think about security, it's not one thing, it's a lot of things, and it's rapidly changing. So cybersecurity InfoSec is a relatively young field, and the field is rapidly evolving at the same time. So while it's pretty young, things are changing, technology is changing very quickly, new jobs are being added all the time. A few months ago, I did a Twitter poll, and I asked people to tell me if they felt like jobs in cybersecurity would look the same or different or be almost unrecognizable in 10 years. And by and large, I'd love to know what everyone here thinks, but by and large, on Twitter, people told me they thought jobs would be unrecognizable. And I can believe it because we're seeing so many new jobs crop up here all the time. But this is another topic that's a little, it's a little controversial. None of us have a crystal ball. So there's a lot of paths in and up is really the purpose of this, but also things are changing. And because they're changing so fast, it's not always clear where people should go. So I talk to a lot of people all the time. I mentor people myself. I coach people. And I hear from people at all stages of their career journey about how confused they are about their career paths. And that's really led to all this work that we're doing now at Battleship, which is, why is this so hard? People feel like, what certifications do I need to invest in? What's my next step, right? I've been at one company for 15 years. I really want to become a director, and I want to go from doing what I've been doing into DevSecOps. And how do I do that? And they're not great roadmaps for these things. What I'm showing on the screen here is a really interesting infographic out of Scotland, actually. And I really like this because it takes all the mini cybersecurity rules and maps them to certifications in a very clear way. I'm sure this can be iterated on. This is about 1.5 years old now, but it helps put into perspective as people are planning out their career journeys, what do certifications look like? And when might you want to invest in different ones? I monitor a lot of conversations online, and including the conversations that I have personally. It goes back to Alethe's OSINT discussion and looking at social media. But I follow people's conversations, even if I'm not personally having them, to try to get even more data here. And what I see a lot of times is that people are asking constantly, like, what certification do I need to go get? Now, what's going to make it possible for me to go get that next job? What should I really be spending my money and time on? Is it possible for me to apply for a job that's requiring a certification if I don't have it? So I wanted to just sit this here in case you hadn't seen this. So in case someone's looking for a map, this is an interesting one. And we'll talk a little bit later about some of the other things I'm hearing about certifications and how you might want to think about it. So that's kind of the baseline for this discussion, into the 3 things no one tells you. And some of these things are controversial. So I'm happy to have an argument with anyone that would like to about these things. In my experience and the data that I'm gathering, these are the things that kind of underlie a lot of conversations and aren't talked about very much. The first one is that entry-level jobs are rare. So what does that mean? What does that actually mean in practice? When we look at the data, and Naomi Buckwalter, who is a prolific poster on LinkedIn, she has so much good information. She's a wonderful force of good in the community. She did a study of 1,000 random job postings on LinkedIn, and she looked to see, for these InfoSec job postings, what were the requirements? How many of them were entry-level, mid-level, senior, executive? What did they require? And she found, and this maps to the anecdotal information I've been getting, is that only 12.5% of the jobs were considered entry-level, so 125 out of 1,000. And of those, on average, they required 5 years of experience. So in any other field, no one would say that an entry-level position requires 5 years of experience, but I believe it. I believe that that's what's in the job postings, because when we talk to people who are just getting out of school or out of a boot camp, or people who are trying to change lanes, mid-career changers from maybe another IT job, they've been in help desk and they want to get into security, what we find is that people are struggling. They're hearing that there's a big skills gap, but they can't find a job. So that's one thing we can dig into a little bit more. The next thing that I found to be incredibly important is you have to network in security or you not work. And I made a course that talks about this called Get the InfoSec Interview. And someone gave me feedback that they were really, really put off by this idea, that this seems so old-fashioned. What do you mean that you have to network, that you can't get hired if you don't network? And they were really harsh in their criticism. They told me they felt like it was just totally disingenuous. And I really mean this, though. If you take nothing else from this presentation, the network or not work, I hope, is one thing that sticks with you, because it will serve you your whole career. So I've polled people on Twitter again around this topic, and I asked how many of you have gotten at least one job or more than one job in InfoSec through networking, and a few thousand people answered. And the response was 75% had gotten at least one job through networking. This maps to the work that I've done interviewing hiring managers. So when I talk to hiring managers of large cybersecurity organizations, and I ask them questions like, how do you hire? Where do you go first? The first thing they say is that they want a referral. They either go to their own network or they go to their employees and ask who is in their employees' network that they should be talking to. When we look at what's happening with HR systems, same thing here. Basically, if you don't have a referral into a company, you can't get past an applicant tracking system. You don't have the right keywords in your resume, you can't get past the applicant tracking system. And even if you do, HR may just scrap it. So network or not work. And the last one, which I think is probably the most controversial, is that the skill shortage is contrived. So when we look at where is the skills gap really? Because we have all of these people coming out of school and these boot camps with the skills, or mid-career changers who want to get in and can't find jobs, who are very technically competent. Why can't they find a job? We also see that, Alyssa Miller did a Twitter poll in InfoSec around how long is it taking you to find a job in InfoSec? Even people who were mid to senior career was taking upwards of 6 months to find a position. So what we're really seeing is that the skill shortage is not a technical skill shortage. It's that so many companies want to hire people with unrealistic expectations. They want unicorns for all of their jobs. Security teams are burned out. They are overworked. And the idea of hiring an employee who's not ready to hit the ground running is just basically discarded because the team doesn't feel like they can take on the mentoring and the hand-holding required to train that person. So a lot of interesting lessons learned and things that I thought were true when I really started immersing myself in what's happening in the cybersecurity people space. A lot of things that I thought were true and that I thought were pretty well accepted about the skills gap just turned out not to be. But there is a skill shortage, however, in core skills or soft skills, which no one really loves talking about. But I hear all the time from hiring managers that communication ability, humility, coachability, those are the skills that they find the hardest to hire for, that they typically have tons of people applying for jobs who are extremely technically capable and competent. But when they start to really dig into, how well can you communicate with your team members? How well can you communicate with a line of business? Do you have any empathy? Do they feel like they can coach you? Things start to break down. So there is a bit of a gap between the core skills and these soft skills and companies feeling like people are fit for the role. So that brings us to our next topic, which is around finding your path in or up in the space. So I have been coaching people recently on this, and again, spending a lot of time doing research on the topic. One of the things that I'm seeing particularly around finding your path into security is that people don't understand where the paths are to begin with, and what's even a realistic first job. So for breaking in, what we tend to see is that cybersecurity analyst positions are the place to break in. And even then, you want to try to be networking, which we'll talk about here in a second. And that most people, though, a lot of people want to become penetration testers right out of the gate, but that's not just realistic. So I tell people this, tough love, you have to get realistic about your path, no matter where you are. Cyberseek.org has a lot of really interesting information on this. And you can look at things like the new NICE framework, if you haven't seen it, around all the work that the federal government and NIST has been doing around job paths is another place you can go. But do your research on job titles and companies, make a plan, and then go for it. Don't wait until you have all the certifications. Start telling everyone you know what you want to do. You want to network everywhere: Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook groups, things like these meetings and online conferences. You want to be telling people what you want and try to be as specific as possible, because it's hard for people to help you if you're not really, really specific about the next job that you want to have. You have to balance that, though, with still being open-minded about multiple paths and get active. So a lot of hiring managers and companies are looking for you giving these external signs that you're really invested in security. So you want to show people who you are, not just tell them. So, talk about your home lab or start a blog or have some of these external signs that can show people, that you're really passionate and that also in the case of blogging, that you can communicate well. That's a win-win. All right, next one. Embracing the business. So if you haven't seen it already, I really encourage everyone to go look at Dan Blum's new book. The ebook is free. It's called Rational Cybersecurity for Business, The Security Leader's Guide to Business Alignment. And you can, like I said, it's open source. You can download it. Dan spent a lot of time interviewing people for this book, and he talks about how do you get the business to buy into security? And I'm bringing this up tonight because when I've been interviewing CISOs and people that manage, global cybersecurity organizations about what does it take to get hired and promoted into a director level position or above, the answer they tell me all the time is that at that level, you have to be able to speak to the business. You have to understand business requirements, and you have to be able to sell security to the business, basically. So since security at its heart is a risk management function, you need the business to buy into the fact that they should buy down their risk and invest in security. And it's not always very easy to do. I find talking about ROI and security to be incredibly difficult, but there are ways to do it, and there are people blazing the path and trying to make it clear for everyone great ways to do it, and Dan's one of them. So whether you want to get that promotion, or you just want to reduce your own burnout at work, thinking about how to be a better salesperson in your job and selling security to the business is one way to do it. Okay, so I have a little business speak exercise here for everyone, and I have a cheat sheet on this. If anybody wants my cheat sheet afterwards, I'm happy to email it to you. I have my email at the end if you want to shoot me a note. But here's a few ideas. So I'm bringing up business speak because we talk a lot of jargon in security, and when you do that with people who aren't in this field, they have psychological barriers that automatically come up. We all do. When we feel stupid, we stop listening. So learning to speak to the business enables you to get them to buy in to whatever your security initiative is, and it also helps you build those relationships. So the first one here is our latest pen test turned up clean. So that might be something you say, right? You have a penetration test and you say, okay, our latest pen test turned up clean. A way to say that without the jargon would be more along the lines of a recent security assessment did not uncover any critical or high vulnerabilities on our network, but I still know there is work to do. So you're just taking out some of that language that they might not understand. Another one, ACLs and VLANs are great for putting a stop to ransomware. So instead, you could say something like, there are ways to apply access to controls and segment the network in order to minimize the risks that ransomware poses. Finally, we were breached because a colleague poked a hole in the firewall to the DMZ. So instead, you can make this one about change management, for instance. So change management is one of the most important parts of a good security program. So just being aware of the language you're using can really help you in your day-to-day job, and it can also get you promoted, funnily enough. All right, the last piece that I want to talk to you about tonight, which is near and dear to my heart, is around mentorship. So mentorship is super cool. I love mentorship, and why do I love it? It is proven to improve your career outcomes, both for people who are the mentee and for mentors. So we see all kinds of really, really interesting data. One thing around mentorship that's really interesting is that data shows that people who write down their goals and then share their goals with another person. So for instance, you share your career goals with a mentor who can hold you accountable and help you incrementally meet them. People who do that are 70% more likely to meet their goals. Another thing that's really interesting is that people who are involved in a mentoring relationship, people that have a mentor, 25% of people are shown to get a band promotion at work who have a mentor. And that's compared to just 5% of employees on average who don't have a mentor who end up getting a promotion. So mentorship is something you can embrace at any career stage. You can embrace it in school. You can embrace it whether you're at the end of your career. Excuse me. It's really something you can do at any time, and it has a lot of benefits for everyone involved. Mentorship also has a lot of benefits for the mentor themselves, whether or not they choose to also be a mentee. And those include things like helping you with your own people management, actively practicing things like empathy. People who are mentors themselves also are more likely to be promoted at work. So there are benefits on both sides. And I'm going to stop at this slide a little early here, but I just want to mention that, so this is something that we're super invested in at Battleship. And we really believe that mentorship is one way that we can help people not only get into security, but advance in security. We can build this infrastructure to help people get the support they need to find their path in and up. So we built a platform all around mentorship. That's one way you can find a mentor. And it helps you set incremental goals. It helps you collaborate with your mentor. I mean, mentorship is something that to be done well, it really needs to be managed. So if you're looking for a security mentor, you can find one on our platform. It's a paid subscription to basically cover our administration costs because we hand match and provide the technology. But I have other ideas too, if you don't want to do that. One is Veterati. So if you are a current military member, a veteran, or a military spouse, you can use Veterati to find mentors for all different kinds of things. And the other one is, if you haven't seen it already, there's a hashtag on Twitter called Cyber Mentoring Monday that a lot of people participate in around sharing mentoring tips and saying that they either are looking for a mentor or are willing to mentor. So check that out if that's something that you're interested in. And if you want to try our platform at Battleship, I made a coupon code for the chapter to get 20% off the monthly fee. There's no contract involved. And if you try it and you don't like it, you can get your money back. So the first 30 days, you can get your money back if you want to try it. And that's it. So I'm trying to go super fast because I know it's 8:17 on a Monday night. And I wanted to leave room for questions. And if you don't want to ask any questions publicly, feel free to email me. There's my email. Happy to answer questions around mentoring, resumes, interviews. I'm available. I'm talking to people about this stuff all the time. So with that, how can I help? Is there anything I didn't cover, went through too quickly that you'd like me to dig into more?
You guys can unmute and ask a question or throw it into chat. That works too. Can we get Kaitlyn, there's some great resources in there. As I asked Alethe, can we get a copy of the presentation slide deck?
Yeah, I'll send it to you afterwards.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Yeah, that's, I started mentoring a friend of a friend, went and got a certificate, not a certification, but a certificate in cybersecurity. And he'd been sending around 50 resumes trying to get a job. And that kind of that really was the first time I started to see that people getting into the industry were struggling because he didn't have experience. He had the certificate, gone through all the training and was learning how to code Python and doing all this. And I started to see the struggles, and I started looking around as well and seeing how challenging it is for people that are just starting out, because the market's already being flooded with people that have been laid off because of COVID and trying to find work. So, trying to figure out that leg up. And we did an event, I think it's when we came back in May. We did the one in April or whenever. Anyway, but we had recruiters. We had some friends of the chapter that were involved in recruiting, and we had a whole discussion. How do you break into this? And it was all about networking and, getting involved in the chapters and the clubs and the groups and meeting people. It may not happen right away. It may take a while, but eventually, because I know from my own personal experience, we were talking about it in the chat, was from my own personal experience, my last 3 positions I've had has been because of networking and meeting other people and so forth. And I know a lot of other folks said the same as well. Let's see, any questions in the chat? No, not yet. But Kaitlyn, no, this was great information. I certainly know this has been worthwhile to some folks. There's a conversation going on in the chat. You can probably go over and see it. But of stuff going on. But folks, yeah, if you know somebody that's trying to get into the industry and is looking to get some help, have them reach out to Kaitlyn. We've got that 20% off code. I think that will help them. I know myself personally, one of the things that I wanted to accomplish as chapter president is to start up a mentor program. And so you've kind of spurred up some ideas for me, Kaitlyn. So I may be in touch.
Sure. I spend all day, every day in the world of mentorship. So happy to answer any questions.
We had last month, we had, I don't think you've met him, but a friend of mine, Glenn Leifheit from Microsoft, he came and talked about mentorship. And so your presentation just kind of bookends that whole conversation. He talked about how to be a mentor and a mentee. But I think you're kind of taking it to that next step about, how to go find one as well. And I know that's something we want to achieve in the chapter. So does any questions, any comments for Kaitlyn, folks?
Well, thanks for having me. It was great speaking with you all. Like I said, if there's anything you don't want to ask publicly that might be sensitive, please feel free to send me a note. You can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or email.
Cool. Sounds good. And if you can stop sharing for me there, Kaitlyn, that would be great.
I did. I can see your screen now.
Cool. You can see my screen now. Cool. I just, before we wrap up, again, you guys all know how to find us. The registration for next month's meeting is now live. So you can go register. It's on the website, and we'll have an email going out probably next week. But you can now sign up for for next month's, for December's event, which would be really cool. Before we go, the other bit of business I want to take care of is, at the beginning of the meeting, I asked what book should we read. And hang on a second, I want to make sure that, let's see here. Okay, you guys should now be able to see me in the corner of the presentation window, right? Yep, cool. Okay, there it is. So anyway, so I wanted to reveal which book we were going to read, and we had some great votes that came in. We did do a recount because it was very, very close. I know we're close to election season, but anyway, so just so you know, I wasn't kidding. I have 3 of the 4 books. The Cuckoo's Egg book I do have, but it's electronically. But I wanted to reveal who had the most votes and which book we're going to use for our first book club, which I'm really excited. We'll do the presentation in February. And the book with the most votes, I got to get clicked onto the screen here, is Sandworm. This is by Andy Greenberg. Really great book with regards to the different cybersecurity attacks that were going on from the GRU with NotPetya, Ukraine. And it's an easy read too. Andy Greenberg writes for Wired magazine. Is this the autographed one? Sorry, no. But a great book. You can get it on Amazon. You get it on read it on your Kindle. But if you do rate it or have read it and want to participate, let us know. We'll be mentioning it in December and January for those folks that have read it, want to come forward. We'll coordinate in January for the meeting that we'll do for the presentation we have in the panel presentation that we'll do in February. And I look forward to, I don't want to just, I mean, I love my officers. They're a great group of folks, but I want members to come forward and participate. This is a safe space. You know, it's not like we're going to make you do a whole 45-minute slide deck. We'll do a panel presentation, have some good questions. You'll be able to share your thoughts. Just a great chance just for us as a community in the chapter to be able to come together. Sorry, just got the, looking at the chat over there. So there's the link for Eventbrite. I want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. Look forward to seeing everybody on December 14th. We'll have, as I said, Rick Payne. We'll have Tara Hughes. But again, a big shout out, a big thank you to Alethe, Denis, and to Kaitlyn and Ilkani for being here this evening. And again, thank you everybody for your time. And we will see you next month. Have yourself a great night.
Take care, James.
Thanks. See y'all later.